everybody. Welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Welcome, Sound Bombing community. Of course, we always start out with our breath, that breath of life. I'm going to do it one more time. Inhale. Exhale. That means that we are alive and you are here with me today in the BalmShelter. Sound bombing is in your home. Thank you, sound bombers, for always tuning in. Thank you for all of the emails that you send to us. Thank you for the questions that you've been sending to us. Thank you for the good ratings that you shared. If you have not gone to my website, check me out at drdrlds.com, drdrlds.com, if you want to find more information about the great things that we are doing with the Combio Group and myself. I had a great conversation with my friend Mark Williams 2 days ago. He interviewed the great Hill Harper on Mark's new show on LinkedIn, LinkedIn with Mark Williams. It was a great show, and I love his show and I love what he's doing. And I'm going to be joining Mark on the LinkedIn show really soon. So shout out to Mark and Mark, Williams Communications with the great things he's doing. And again, we are all on every platform, people. As I told you, we're on Stitcher, we're on iTunes, we're on iHeartRadio, we are on TuneIn. So there's no reason not to check us out. We are there, we are here. So please join us. And if you were here the last time, as always, you know we bring on some of the dopest, smartest individuals in this country who are doing some great work. And again, they are coming to the studio, and I'm so grateful that they are. They're joining me from wherever they are across the country. As I say to you all the time, welcome, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I hope that you're staying safe. I hope that you're practicing physical distancing, not social distancing. I keep telling you all, as human beings, we are social animals. So we want to remain social once we come out of this pandemic, but I want you to stay physically distanced, 6 feet away from people. Wash your hands, put on your mask. All those things are important. So let's get down to business. I probably don't have to tell or remind my sound bombing communities about statistics about women in high-level leaders of positions in the United States. And if I do, let's put it this way. They are grim. Most of the time, all you have to do is look around the C-suite of any company, and I'm talking about you, Sound Bombers, your company, and the picture will be all too clear. But there are plenty of women who have made it to the top. And today, one of them is joining me in the BalmShelter to share her secrets for success. Who am I talking about? My good friend, Lorna Little. Now, don't be fooled by her last name, because everything she does is big. Lorna has a diverse background that melds into an interesting mix of human services, leadership, and media. Born in London, lived most of her life in Hartford, Connecticut, and now residing in Los Angeles. Lorna is a woman of many talents: social worker, photographer, television producer, author, and former host of Lorna's Corner. Now, Lorna used to host a television program back in the heyday in the 80s and the 90s where hip hop was golden, as we called it. Lorna interviewed so many people. I'm just going to name drop a few of them. Some of y'all called them Puffy. Some of you all call him Diddy. His birth certificate says Sean Combs, went to Howard University. You might have heard of Queen Latifah. Women love this other guy, Morris Chestnut, and women love this other dude, LL Cool J, just to name a few. But her passion and love is empowering people to create a spirit of positive community, collaboration, and a spirit of empowerment, inspiration, and service towards one another. And she does this daily as the first woman and African American president and CEO to run St. Anne's in over 111 years. St. Anne's is an organization driven by a tireless mission of working together to build safe, nurturing, and resilient families from pregnancy to parenthood, from childhood to adulthood for generations to come. Founded in 1908 by Bishop Thomas Conte, St. Anne's began as a 12-bed hospital for pregnant, unwed young mothers. At that time, St. Anne's was regarded as a hiding place for young women to come into secrecy and to conceal their pregnancy from community and their families. But it's changed since then. Since the humbling beginnings of St. Anne has evolved into one of Southern California's most highly regarded social services agencies, today St. Anne's remains committed to providing targeted programs and support services in response to the ever-changing needs of community, never straying away from their mission of helping young women and children and families in need without regard to race or religion. St. Anne's continues under the leadership of Lorna Little as an important resource to the Los Angeles community. And I want to welcome my friend to the BalmShelter. What's happening, Lorna Little?
Hello, hello. I'm so excited to be here. I'm telling you, that introduction, man. I need you around all the time.
Well, as you heard in my introduction, I bring on some of the most amazing people that I know. I keep telling you all, sound bombers, I got some friends who got some friends who got some friends. But Lorna and I go way, way back when I got a chance to meet her when I was speaking in Connecticut. But I wanna go back a little bit, and I want you to share with our listeners how we met, and then the work that you were doing in this amazing house in Connecticut with some amazing girls. And I think the timing is perfect because I just sent Lorna a photo of about 8 to 10 of those girls who just really just, they opened my mind and hearts and spirits up to being a teen mother, raising children, and going to school. So Lorna, let's talk about your early work before we get into the gazillion dollar organization that you're running right now. Let's talk about the early beginnings of Lorna Little. Let's talk about how we met and then your work in Connecticut, and then we're going to take it from there.
Sure. So I actually attended a workshop that you provided, talking about in the educational realm of working with young parents. Even as the leader of an organization, I always feel it's very essential that you continue to learn and educate yourself around the various areas that will help the population that you serve. And so I'm thankful that I went that day. We had an opportunity to speak after witnessing your dynamic presentation. And then we, connected and spoke. And I was like, you need to come over to connect with our organization and, with the work that you're doing. And what I really appreciated about you was that you weren't necessarily coming over seeking a check. You weren't necessarily coming because of an opportunity per se, although maybe that will present itself. Initially, it was just out of care and concern and interest in the work with the population that we serve of young parents, and came over and then ended up coming over with Michelle and, having an opportunity to really spend some time with our young people and having that experience where you got to see them. And I think that is something critical for anybody that's working with youth in our community, for you really to see and hear them and be interested in their stories and just sitting and talking and hearing. And they connected with you as well because when sometimes you've gone through the foster care system and, have experienced some trauma, you don't connect with everyone because you don't know who you can trust just based on life experiences. But they really enjoyed meeting you, hearing you give them words of wisdom, sharing with them, tips about life from a perspective of the work that you do, as well as being a male. And I thought it was great. And then having Michelle come and share her book, it was just a wonderful opportunity. So that connection lent us to continue to talk, to have you come back. When you were in town, you would always visit, and got to know your wife and got to know, the work you do, the amazing work. So that was a great connection. I always say there's no coincidence. It's ordincidence. It's my word. I made it up. It's ordained incident.
I love it, and you're gonna own that. If you know anything about Lauren, if you don't know, she is jazzy, always fly, always on point, and just ready for not only ready to be in front of the camera, also ready to be behind the camera because she's always walking around with that camera. And you're right. Every time I came to Connecticut, I always called you. Never said, "Hey, I want to come and do any work." I said I wanted to come and hang out. That house with those girls was like a reality TV show. Every time I walked in there, you come through the door, you make a right, you see all the kids, and they're in care with the
Yeah,
caregivers. They're
yeah,
doing their thing.
yeah,
Your office was to the left. You keep straight down the
yeah,
shared space. You gave me a tour
yeah,
of the conference room. You gave me a tour of the homes.
yeah,
This was,
yeah,
if I were a pregnant teen, let me just tell you this. This was the place to be. I learned so much about those girls. What I really appreciate you at that time, and you said to me, many people want to come in and do shows about the girls. You're like, nope, I'm not exposing these girls. I'm not doing, because I was like, Lorna, this would be great.
yeah,
You said many people have come to you, but I love how you
yeah,
ran it. They loved you. You did not play around with it. Most of the girls were kids that looked like us, black and Latina girls, which was that population in
yes,
that particular area. But what I really appreciated is that you wanted me to come in and have a male perspective, because I think a lot of times,
yes,
and we're going to talk about you as a female leader, and that's why I'm bringing you on. A lot of times, we're having women talking to women, and boys, or men talking to boys, but we don't have the opposite sex. And I think me
exactly.
coming in there, and I think at the time, I don't even know if I had children. They were probably young. So I'm looking at these girls as if they could be one as my students and then my own children. And I looked at that
Yes,
photo, and I sent you a copy of that photo, and you started sharing with me
yeah,
that
how it
some of the
goes.
girls, life is still showing up. They still dealing with challenges. Other girls are doing it. But you showed me a lot of love. But beyond that, you were just an amazing example. Not even about all the degrees that you had obtained, and not all the awards and all the creative things, but you were such a great example, of course, raising your own girls, and those young ladies looked up to you, and to see them in that place, some of that place was really life or death for some people. The streets could have eaten them alive, and you were giving
Yes,
them not only just a place to live, therapy, the social work, mental health support, checking on them in school. I remember speaking at one of the schools, had nothing to do with your organization, and one of those girls were there, so it was kind of cool. They got a message from me in the home with them, and then also in front of individuals. So I just want to thank you for doing that. I brought you on because you are a woman of power and a woman of leadership, and I know during the COVID time, your leadership is being tested. So I want to just talk to you about being a female leader. And sometimes I don't like to separate male or female leader, but I know that there's some challenges. Can you define to me what a great leader is, and then what are some traits you think great leaders possess?
well, for me, I think a great leader is someone who knows that there's always room for improvement. No one can grow if they think they're there yet. They're already there. For me, leadership involves listening, being able to really listen and learn what your teams need, understanding who you're working with. I have supervision with my executive leadership team, each individual at least an hour per week. A lot of times as leaders, we don't have time. We're so busy doing so much that in order to be able to help lead individuals, you need to know who you're working with. They need to know your strengths and your areas of expectation. I'm not a person that people, and it's interesting. I had this conversation this week. I said to someone, people said, "Oh my goodness, you're so inspirational. You're so kind. You're always able to kind of inspire us to do the best we can and give it our all on behalf of the people that we serve." And I said, yes, that is accurate. And I'm thankful for that, feedback and reflection. But that doesn't mean that there aren't expectations. I think a great leader is one who provides high support, but yet has high accountability. there's an expectation in our organization or anywhere that I have worked and led, is that I am going to support my people, but I am going to have significant amounts of expectation that they are coming to work, that they are interested in giving their best. And most importantly, one of the things you said in reference to, the prior organization that I led, you felt love when you came in there.
Yes, you did,
What
and
you
you
felt,
fed us.
yes. But when you come in, you felt love for the people that we serve. There are too many times that leaders allow people to work in their organizations and they do not like the people that they serve. And what I mean by that is not that they're not willing to do their job and get through the day and receive a paycheck, but that they actually don't have a connection and a level of care for the level of success that those young people need
Mm.
to have. I want people within our organization who want these young folks and these families and these children to be successful, that they actually care about their well being. That is a critical part of leadership. Leaders ought to want to have people, first of all, they have to have that themselves. I have that. Those could be my children in that program, and those families could be my relatives. But you want to make sure you are leading people, providing them with the skills, the support, having the levels of expectation. And, we talk in our organization a lot. I say, let's close the loop. We over communicate. I think a good leader over communicates. And what I mean is not talking too much, but communicating in a way that you're having that conversation about that shared vision, the expectations, and once again, listening to understand what it is your teams need to be able to be successful. It's wonderful to put out a whole bunch of goals and expectation, and then there are all these barriers that are within an organization or within the community that don't allow them to be successful. So you have to pay attention and be responsive and not reactive. That's very important. We sometimes move too quickly, and I love to say go slow to go fast, because we need to be responsive and just not
So,
reactive as
so I heard
leaders.
you say that one of your staff members said that you're always so kind, you're always so motivational and inspirational. You always have a great word to say. I heard you say that the other organization that you ran in Connecticut that I visited on several occasions, when you walked through the door, that there was a whole bunch of love there. What was your journey like to get where you are? You because you're passionate about working with young people, in particular, working with young girls. What was your journey like to get where you are before the degrees, before the TV show, before the book? How did you end up where
Yeah.
you are, and to be so passionate and compassionate about the work that you're doing?
Well, I think, the life journey is important in my story, at least. I was a young teen mom myself. And, in that moment, those many, many years ago, I had no idea at that time that that experience and that path for my life would lead me to then take that experience and move it forward with the young people that I would continue to work and gain education and advocate on behalf. But living and walking in and having that experience and walking those shoes, it gives you a different perspective. It also allows me to hopefully be a role model in the sense of those young people who kind of come down, the path in terms of being in the programs that I may lead. They have an opportunity to say, okay, wait a minute, she went through this, and yes, everyone's different, but she was able to finish school, go on and do what she has to do, get married, do all the different things that happened in my life, and have an opportunity to be successful. So one of my biggest messages is always that yes, we will have challenges in life, but we can't allow those barriers to stop us. And one of the things that we don't give enough in any scenarios, young men, young women who are living in situations where there are barriers, challenges, vulnerable populations, that we cannot distinguish hope. We can't tell young people that, oh, this has happened, and so, your chances for an optimal life are over. Just settle and just take what you can get. That is not the philosophy that I espouse.
So you've had tons of barriers in your personal life growing up, and we'll probably talk about your book later on. As a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career? Because you've always had, since I've known you, you've always had these very, very high positions. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the one that you're in LA right now is probably at the highest. What are some of the significant barriers
Yeah.
you've had in your career?
Well, it's interesting because as a woman and as a woman of color, a black woman, it's interesting because I sit around many tables and I've done that for a while in terms of being in this field of, if you want to call it child protective services, whether it's foster care, adoption, leadership, because at the end of the day, as a leader, I'm a business leader. And then I think that is where the distinction kind of starts to happen in terms of the ability to go to the next level. Yes, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I have that background, but you have to be a business leader. You have to have the skills and ability to manage and lead a business and an organization and be able to keep your hands in every area, and kind of like a, conducting an orchestra. You're keeping all the musicians and everyone going, and it takes paying attention and listening to every sound and being connected in that way. But a big challenge, I think, is sometimes sitting around those tables, I would be the only African American woman. I would be the only person um, in these settings. And so when it would be time sometimes to raise issues or concerns, or just areas of pushing um, thought provoking ideas around areas that I saw where there were some disparities or things that were not fair or um, conducive to success for our clientele. It at times could appear, oh, she's just possibly saying that because she's a black woman. Why do I have to only be the only champion in the room for our cause? There are other people that see these issues and can raise them, but I'm still going to raise them. I am still going to be the champion. And it's not just because I'm a black woman. It is because that is what's right. That is what's fair. And if I notice something that is inappropriate or something that needs to be challenged, I'm going to speak up on it. So this is where we often get this false perception of, black women being angry, or, that, our voices are kind of always kind of pushing the envelope. No, it's just that we carry that burden. If you are true to who you are and true to your calling and true to sharing stories and information about things that are not equitable, you're going to speak up. So then you may have the opportunity to carry that banner. It's knowing how to do it in a way that you want to make sure you're heard. And so I think sometimes the challenge of always being that person who ends up having to speak up on behalf of a community. You hate to have to always be the only voice. You want to have others. And then sometimes as a woman, you know, take out the aspects of being a black woman. I had an experience, and I won't go into details, but it was interesting when I came on board a particular organization. There was a male who was used to having like strong decision making power, and I remember we were deciding on something, and I think it hadn't sunk in yet. Like, okay, she is the CEO, she is making the decision. The person said, I had a view on it. He had a view on it, and he says, "Well, who are we going to call in to see, to kind of break our tie, so to speak?" And I just looked and I said, "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean." He said, "Well, you selected this and I selected that, and I'm wondering, should we get a third opinion in to make the decision?" And I said, "There's no need for that. The decision has already been made. This is the way we're going," and left it at that. And it made it clear at that point that as a woman, I can make that decision. And in my role, that is what I'm supposed to do. But sometimes it takes a period of adjustment for people to get that. And that was an interesting situation.
so we're going to park right there for a second because I want to talk about not just that particular situation, but another situation. So how do you then, as a leader, how do you then move forward when everyone else in the room is telling you your idea won't work? What do you typically do?
Well, for me, it's about coming with facts as much as possible. Um, you know, you have to weigh, you have to use your experience, you have to share how you made the decision sometimes. And sometimes you don't have facts. Sometimes it's just a matter of, sometimes you rely on that intuition. You rely on the fact that you know that you've weighed the options of whatever scenario it is, and you, in your best judgment, in your best educated estimation, that this is the right thing to do. And you can only do that if you're willing to take a risk. And I think leaders have to take risks. We're not always going to be right. But if you have thought through the idea, the plan, you've weighed all the consequences, the pros and the cons, and this is your decision, you have to be comfortable to sit in that decision. But you also have to be comfortable if it doesn't work out, to understand that you'll own that too. One of the things that I think, is challenging, with leadership around the country right now, is that you can't only want to win and be seen as the right, and not own, if you take ownership of all the great wins and all the things that happen that are positive, you also have to own when things are not right, or there are challenges or things go wrong. You can't only own the positives. It doesn't work like that for true leadership.
I'm sure that there's some women in the sound bombing community that can relate to everything that you said, and particularly the situation with the male figure who said in the room, well, who's going to break the tie? And you are in a room full of other CEO women who are in your network, I'm sure, where you have these conversations. What are some strategies you've learned that can help other women achieve a more prominent role in their organization?
Well, I think you have to have an ally. I think you need to, we're taught that we shouldn't toot our own horn. And I'm not talking about being braggadocious. I'm not referring to being, every time you turn around, I do this and I do. That's not what I'm referencing. But if people don't know within your organization and you want to elevate what you've accomplished, or you don't have an ally who may be on that next level, who can bring your successes or the things you've accomplished to that senior leadership, your chances of elevating are much, it's much harder. So I would say women who have been taught to kind of downplay what they've accomplished, or their successes, or their ideas and dreams, sharing your goals with someone. I remember a young woman I met back in Hartford said to me, she actually contacted me online. Funny enough story, I ended up knowing who her father was. You know how those things work. But at the time, I had no idea. And she came to me and she said, I'd like to run a YWCA one day. And I was like, okay. We came and we talked. I said, you need to go and sit and spend time with the current person who's the CEO of the Y. And she was like, oh my goodness, really? And the reason I said that is, you need to know what she did to get there. You want to know the steps she took. If you want to learn and you have a goal, then you need to listen to someone who's done it, and listen to what they've gained, how they've got there, but also the challenges they face, and see if you can put a blueprint in order to get there. I laughed the other day when I went online on Facebook and I saw her working at the Y, because she wasn't working there yet. And I sent her a note. I said, that's the first step. You're in the door. Now continue to do what you do. So I would just say some of the strategies are, you have to know your skills, know your strengths, know your areas of challenge, get the education or the training that you need. And in rooms where women are working together, and I say this not just for women, if you see someone who's trying to get a word in, who's trying to raise their hand, or they make a point and they say the same thing, and now here comes someone else who makes the same point, who may not look like them, who may be a male, and people are like, oh, that's a great idea, to that second person, then it's our responsibility in a respectful and appropriate way to say, oh, that is a great idea. Did you realize that Tina just raised that idea right before? It's the same idea. So they both are great minds think alike. You bring attention back to the fact that that person just said that and was not recognized and didn't get credit. And it's our responsibility in that room to help bring attention to that in a way that's not threatening.
Have you ever just sat back in a boardroom full of individuals and reflected on your life, like as I was introducing you, I'm talking about born in London,
Yes.
lived on the East
Hmm.
Coast, got into the music industry, working with a group of young girls, now running a multi-million-dollar organization. Have you ever reflected on that? And if you have, what are some things that you start to say to yourself, or what are some voices that are coming to you? What are they actually saying?
That's a wonderful question because it happens fairly often. Just, there's this song in church, when I look back over my life, when I think things over, I can truly say that I've been blessed. I got a
Girl, I'm about to
testimony.
start shouting in
That
here.
is
Stop
it.
playing sound bombers.
That,
About to go to church up in here.
that yeah, that is it for me. And seriously, that is it for me because if there is no way to be grateful and to be excited about this little black girl who had a baby, who was in high school, who had some folks who gave that kind of your life is over thing, that perspective from teachers and others, to be able to sit and someone broke it down to me the other day. They said, Lorna, I don't know if you realize you are the CEO and president of a $28 million organization.
Mm.
And that journey is real. And those reflections, I thank God. I thank the hard work. I think the hard choices. But someone said this to me, and I won't forget it. They said, Lorna, you always did this because you cared and had intense concern for the well being of this population. You never did it with the intention of trying to get income or money. Obviously, we all need money to live and work. Don't get me wrong, of course. But because my intentions were true and pure, because I worked hard and advocated, and because I managed the smaller organization well, because I did those things, this opportunity came my way, and I was prepared for it when it came at the perfect time. And so the reflection is deep. The reflection is continue to stay focused, don't lose sight, keep the same passion and focus that you've had over the years. And I just know there are larger stakes now. There's a lot more work, there's a lot to do. But that same core thread of making sure that these young people have an optimal life experience, that they will then go out and maybe one of them will be in my seat one day.
And I concur with your friend. I mean, you do reflect and think about, the millions and millions of dollars that comes through your organization, but beyond that, how is it being the first African American and woman of to run St. Anne in over 111 years? And then talk about your role at St. Anne's. What are your day-to-day processes like, and what is the goal of the organization?
So the goal of the organization, one of the things that's dynamic about St. Anne's, is our ability to reach across lines. So first of all, our focus is very similar to what I've done in the past, but we're so much of a larger organization. And what we have done is provide, we have early Head Start. We have over 600 families that are a part of our Head Start programs. So that is a line of business that we're doing. We're also providing housing. So we have transitional housing. We have residential, short-term residential therapeutic program, which is more similar to the program that I ran before, but we also have the transitional housing. We have permanent supportive housing. So we have the whole spectrum. We have people who come into our program for counseling, and we provide therapy. We have family-based services. One of the things I started with some of our team members, I said, I am so interested in supporting fathers. The connection to the mothers to the fathers is so critical. And so we have a fatherhood group now. Since I've been there, we started working with dads. We are doing so much more. It's such a large organization that we have a lot going on. The reason I say all of that is because my day is filled with reviewing contracts, signing checks, discussing best practices, reviewing work that we're doing in the community, building relationships with our various entities that are in Los Angeles, attending meetings. I mentioned early on the supervision with my team members, having management meetings with the other layer of staff, really and truly making sure that our mission and our goals are being met and that we're doing it in a way where we're able to continue to can maintain all our funders. I mean, fundraising is a big part of a role like mine. I am making sure that we are connecting with donors. I'm out, not in this day of distancing, but is a joke similar to politicians, shaking hands and kissing babies, but you know, really making sure that we keep our funding, making sure we meet licensure. There's so many licensing regulations that come along with St. Anne's. And when you think about our mission, the mission is working together to build safe, nurturing, and resilient families from pregnancy to parenthood and childhood to adulthood for generations to come. That's the work in itself. That takes a lot for us to be able to provide all of those services. And so my day is really filled with, a lot of meetings, a lot of reviews of contracts, a lot of discussions about how we can continue to make the organization better. And ingrained in that is the piece that I talked about, is that we want to make sure that we're hiring and maintaining people who care about the families on that same level, that they're carrying out their duties and responsibilities in a way that respect the dignity of all those people that are in the program, but also holding them accountable. You mentioned it earlier, Lamar, that we want the best for all the families, but there's a level of respect, especially with the young people, that we want them to know the real deal in terms of what's out there in the world. If you don't have levels of accountability and expectations of those young folks within the program, knowing that, we want them to go to school, knowing that we expect them to do the best they can, learning parenting skills that we provide, knowing all of those things, if we kind of just give them a general pass because they've had trauma in their life and they've had some challenges, how well have we how well have we taught or provided for them so when they go out into the world that they don't crash?
So, what are some things that you've
You
learned
know?
about yourself since the pandemic as a leader? What are some skills that you've gained? What are some things that you learned about yourself? And how are you managing your team? Because I know you affect hundreds of thousands of individuals in that city.
Yeah, it's what I've learned is you always have to be ready to pivot. You have to, they say stay ready so you don't have to
Mhm.
get ready. I mean, that is real. We could never have imagined something like this. But let me tell you, we had to pull together. We started, as soon as this started coming down the line, we actually had our big Evening of Angels gala scheduled right when this was happening. Early conversation was okay, we are canceling the gala. This was before the stay at home orders. We started pulling together to make sure our space was safe and clean, and we had to make sure we expanded, hiring additional staff for disinfectant purposes. We had to make sure we had all our protocols in place in terms of making sure that we had clear guidance on how to maneuver once we had the safer at home. We had to really look at staff. How can we do our jobs? Who can stay off campus and work from home? What new technology do we need to put in place? Laptops we need to buy, technology that we need to have so that our therapists and our counselors and some of the people who are working in our early childhood education centers, what can we do so that they can do their job from homes? We had to close our and when I say close, we had to set up for distance learning from our early childhood education centers, our Head Start, provide our teachers with resources and ability, and make a conscious decision that we would pay our people even though they were not working, because the first 2 weeks was just planning. We were just planning and making sure that we would be able to keep our doors open as an essential organization. We did not close. We've been working. I've been going to work this entire time. But we had to make a decision. How could we effectively carry out all we had to do, keep our staff safe, keep all the employees, all the residents, all the people who are working with us, and keep our building clean and accessible only to those people, and then meet all our licensure requirements. So it was quite a heavy lift. I say I have my regular duties and then I have my COVID related duties. And we've been fortunate at this point that we haven't had any positive families or staff members that have been positive for
That's good to
COVID.
know.
And so we're doing all we can. But I learned a lot. I learned that, we're flexible when we have to be. And one thing I will say, Lamar, that is very important is that some of the things that we talked about, let's try this and let's try that. And you know how much time things take. You have ideas that you say, down the line we'll do this, down the line we'll do this. When you're forced into doing something, it's amazing how quick it happens.
Wow. So you are doing an amazing job. I am so grateful and honored that you joined me here. I know that there's some women and men out there who want to either start their own business or that they're struggling with some leadership skills and they want to continue to have a conversation with you. And we want them to get a copy of your book. How can our listeners get in contact with you?
They can contact me, L Little at stannans.org. They can also check out my website. Lornascorner.com is also another place. One of the things that I've always known is that, we are in different places and different spaces. And our brand is always who we are, regardless of those spaces and places. And I'm thankful that, Lorna Little, Lorna's Corner, St. Anne's, all those different entities, they're all under one umbrella of helping and empowering. And so I would love for people to reach out to me via the email. They can also go to our St. Anne's website, stannans.org. And I would be more than willing to share whatever insights I may have. I always say, none of us know it all, but working together, we can make this world a much better place. And during this time, I continue to pray for all those who are experiencing the impact in, medically dealing with the virus, those whose family members may, if they've lost a family member, and those who are out there working. Our workers are what I consider frontline workers in the sense of, there are many people working with families who are putting themselves, in harm's way to make sure that they provide services to the children and families who, come to our program every day. We feed over 500 families a week. Right outside, we set up a little drive-through food donation program to make sure the children and families who aren't getting meals in school or in our Head Start or, in the community, people, don't have the incomes and they need food. And so I'm thankful that part of our pivot was, okay, let's do something new. Let's do this drive up and get this done. And we've been working with our school on our campus, New Village Academy and others, Seeds of Hope, to provide resources and food for these families that come through. And it's a beautiful thing to see from 9 to 12 every
Well,
day.
if you're in the greater Los Angeles area, we want you to check out
Yeah.
St. Anne's. They're doing some amazing work. You can go to their website and you can make a donation. You can also go to Lorna's Corner and pick up her book and see the amazing things that she's doing. And her daughter, documentary that your daughter is working on about all the things that you've done.
So really quickly, my daughter came up with this idea that we need to do a documentary on some of the work that I've done over the years with Lorna's Corner and just sharing. And so she's working on that, and I'm excited about that. And the journey's taken twists and turns now. I'm in LA, and so that has to be added to the face. But we'll get that done.
So
Yep.
Lorna, I know you have a book out called Mum's the Word. You gave me a copy of it when I was there with you in Connecticut. Can you talk to me about the premise of this book and what do you expect people to gain as they complete this piece of literature that you've written?
Well, the book is about my life and it's about the journey of unexpected surprises briefly without giving away the whole story, because the book is actually written as a mystery, although it is factual and it is my biography, my memoir, is when I was in my early 30s, I um, unknowingly found out, it was unexpected, that I was adopted and was never told. And so, how I found that information out and what transpired since that revelation occurred. And it's a lot about family secrets. Many of our families have lots of secrets and information that's not shared, things that we just kind of have in our back pocket. And all of a sudden it gets dropped as a, oh, yeah, you didn't know. And the implications of that on people and our families and histories. So it really is a journey of discovery and truth. It deals with like the work that I'm dealing with and around adoption and how, impacted people feel when they are living lives where they don't know their full histories.
When you started writing this book, what are some things that you discovered about your past that really, really sort of maybe connected in some other areas in your life?
Well, as I just started writing and sharing and meeting a mom, looking to search for a mom that I'd never met, it reminded me of some of the experiences that our young people that have been in program have had in terms of, been if they've been in foster care their entire life and they never had an opportunity to meet their biological parents, some of those same feelings and experiences, just wondering why someone made the decision to make a plan of adoption. All of those parallels are very similar to some of the work that I had been doing, and also people, who were placed early years into some of the programs, whether it be St. Anne's or my prior program. You have people coming back and looking and saying, I'm trying to find my parents, or I found out I was born here. And although I wasn't born in one of those programs, it's a very similar journey. And so the journey is very parallel. And just finding out about family. I grew up as an only child, in my home, and so to find out I had siblings, and there was just so much that I learned, and it all turned out well in the end, but it was definitely a challenging and emotional journey in the beginning.
Hmm. Do you have any suggestions for individuals who are also going down a journey of finding out that they might have been adopted? Any suggestions that you might have for them?
I would say that I start with the parents. Parents that are out there now who have adopted children, there's nothing wrong with adoption. Please don't make it something that needs to be a secret. There's no need to not share. I understand people are concerned. They're worried about someone feeling as if, because they're not biologically related, the child may, have certain feelings. But that's not accurate. When you put the shroud of secrecy over it, you turn it into something that's not positive. You turn it into something that is not normal. So I'd start with parents. Please don't keep that secret from your child. Please don't. And for someone who may be searching, just know that the response can be different. You may find someone who is receptive and wants to engage and connect with you and is joyful about having you in their life. But you may find out that this person or this parent hasn't ever told anyone that they had a child and placed a child for an adoption up for adoption, and therefore doesn't want to connect and engage, because therefore they would have to share and tell everyone. Anyone who's watched This Is Us, those feelings of adoption and different layers and the search and the connection, it's a great, opportunity to see some of those feelings. I had an opportunity to meet Sterling K. Brown and just told him what an amazing job that, he's done with that character. But those are some of the feelings right there in living color.
Wow. I
So
encourage you to pick up the book. But Lorna, before you get out of here, I got a couple of questions for you. We call it the Super Bomb question. So I'm going to ask you these questions, and I need you to respond as quickly as possible. Are you ready?
I'm going to
All
try.
right, here we go. What's your favorite word?
Love.
What's your favorite quote or Bible scripture?
Oh, Jeremiah 29:11.
What's your superpower? What's
Motivation.
your spirit animal?
Ooh,
What
lion.
moves you to tears of joy?
when people
What
overcome
moves you to tears of sorrow?
hopelessness.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Enjoy the sun.
What is the best or most worthwhile investment you've ever made? It could be an investment of money, time, energy, etc.
Video camera.
What's your morning routine like?
Waking up, praying, and trying to get some exercise in an outdoor boot camp when I'm able to do
If
that.
you were in the Mrs. America talent competition, what would your talent be?
Inspirational speech.
I told you, listeners, that she was going to be amazing. We want you to check her out. The CEO, President and CEO of St. Anne's, Lorna Little. Lorna, thank you for joining me today in the Bomb Shelter.
And I love that title. Thank you so much. And Dr. Shields, I'll call you by your rightful name. Thank you for having me here. And I appreciate all you're doing in the community. And I look forward to having the opportunity when all of this is over that you have an opportunity to visit us at St. Anne's and share some of your talents with our
Well,
folks.
thank you. We know that you're busy running this huge organization, and we're so grateful that you are giving back. And I also want to thank my engineer, Alec Blanc, my producer, Kimberly Peterson, Supremacy, for our theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, stop being stingy, and go share me with all of your friends on all of social media. And if you want to know more about me, you can visit drlds.com. Thank you for tuning in, and you've been listening to Sound Bombing. Peace.